Hello, Internet. I'm Harley, and today I would like to give my thoughts on Final Fantasy, the first one for NES. I thought it'd be interesting to kind of give my point of view and the experience I had playing this game, seeing as how this is the first Final Fantasy game I've ever played. First things first, in case you haven't seen any other videos on this channel, or what my whole point for this channel is I plan to play through every single Final Fantasy game in order. Now the reason I'm doing this is because I'm insane and I've always wanted to get into the Final Fantasy series. I never knew much about it. I always had like this sort of, I saw it through like the windowsill and like I was like, wow, that would be cool. But the series has always been super daunting, and whenever I jump into a series, I always have to start from the very beginning and make my way through. So, starting this series, where I will record myself and document my journey through every Final Fantasy game, I started with the very first one. So I went out and I got myself a copy of Final Fantasy for the NES, and I started playing. Let me just say right off the bat, let's not drag this out. My thoughts on Final Fantasy for NES, I love this game. This game is just, I just love it so much. That being said, this game is very flawed. There's a lot wrong with this game, but despite all of its flaws, despite all of its hardships, despite all the fact that stuff don't work, stuff takes too long, I'd put this game in my top 10 of favorite games. This game has been an absolute blast to play, and it's overall been an amazing experience, and I'm glad I have played it. Should other people play it? I don't know, but let me talk a bit more about like what the game is first, and then you can kind of make that decision for yourself. Starting with the story. Okay, so the story is so like, the plot, I don't want to give away too much, but I want to say that is straight up super simplistic D&D kind of plot. Like, oh, go get the magical items to save the world. That's all it is. That's it. It's very bare bones, honestly. I mean, there's very rarely events that happen that unlock more of the story of the world and like what's going on. For the most part, it's very bare bones, and it's very, go do this task and save the world, which caters to the game so well, because it poses two things. One, you know exactly what you're expecting. I mean, like, let's face it, if you're gonna get this game, you kind of have an idea what Final Fantasy is, because so many tropes were built off of this game that, like, oh yeah, I go get the magical items, and then I save the princess, and I save the world, and all of that. So you kind of know the beats of the story, and you can have fun with it. It's kind of like going in to see like an action movie at a movie theater, okay? You know that the hero is going to be on top, he's going to get knocked down, there's going to be a love interest, there's going to be a couple action scenes, and then eventually he saves the day. And because of that, you can have fun, you can roll with it. But the lack of like super hard detail in it also helps you interject your own story. Like, the events that happen in it's a game, you have a control over your actions, and like, you know, sometimes you fail in dungeons, sometimes you get sent back, you make mistakes. All of this starts to make you interject your own story in there, and you know, there's a lot of like tales I have from this game because of that. I mean, there's some tales outside of this, like I played on a third-party console, which broke, deleted my save, had to go back, redo everything, borrowed an NES from a friend. There's a lot of stuff going on like that. But then there's also, like, you know, actions that happen in the game that kind of, like, add the story to it. And most of this is done through the characters. Speaking of which, characters. So you get to customize your party, which, right off the bat, holy frick, this is an NES game and you get to customize your party. What the heck? Mind blown. Mind blown. Like, there's so many games where you don't get to do that. And here is an NES game that allows you to customize your party. And in a way to where it's like, you're gonna probably want to do a second run through this game just so you can have all the classes. You are very limited in naming your characters. But the fact that you get to name them and choose their class, like, kicks off this little personal bond that you have with them. Now I figure many people probably have, like, just named them after, like, family or friends or stuff like that. I didn't. I went out I took a little extra step out and gave them all, like, personalized character names. And then just through the normal mechanics of the game, just through gameplay, they built characters. They built actual characters. Now let's be clear, right off the bat, this game does not give any character development. These characters have no dialogue. They make no choices outside of what you make them do, and there's, like, no reactions to the outside world of who they are. You can have a party of wizards, or a party of boxers, or a party of thieves, or mismatch, and the world is going to react to you the same way that they always have. That being said, the game's mechanics and, like, the way that you do, like, base mechanic, like combat and playing the game normally, builds character into your characters without having to stop, sit down at a campfire and everyone talks about their feelings. Just the mechanics of this, like, let me just roll down, like, sort of like the character list. My party. Let me just give a nice little overview of my party real quick to kind of see the idea that I had going. Going down the party, at the very top, we have Thef. Now, he was the first one I made, and I was figuring, like, oh, the fighter, he'll probably be like me, right? Of course, I can't put my name in there, because it's too many characters. So I went with, oh, Final Every Fantasy. I'll call him Thef. And for the most part, he's the least developed character in my own head, because he's essentially always played the role of me. Like, if you saw the series, there's many times in it where I'm just like, oh, look at me, I'm just a dumb fighter, I don't know what I'm doing. Or, like, I will, like, yell at the party if something bad happens from the perspective of Thef. He's, like, sort of, he took the role of the generic, like, he's my self-insert, right? He's how I got invested into the game. But of course, there's a couple little times where, like, it's outstretched, and I'm like, oh gosh, wow, Thef is really pulled through, or like I've congratulated him on stuff, because it's like, he is a fighter. Character-wise, I see Thef as an absolute hard tank fighter who does everything he can because of his companions. I cannot tell you how many times I was just barely able to get out of a dungeon dragging the rest of the dead party. And see, I just did it right there. I put myself in Thef's shoes. But, like, Thef is the only one alive, and I have to escape a dungeon. He's, like, dragging these dead party members behind him, and he has to, like, take them to the town to get healed. So I always saw Thef as, like, he is super strong, super hardy. He's a hero, but all because of his traveling companions. It's all because of the other Warriors of Light. And going to the next Warrior of Light, we have Ro, who is the, you know, wizard. Like, Ro was very, like, just not a character for a very long time. Ro was always just like this, like, weird, mysterious character, and I was just the whole time I was like, I'm not sure if Ro's a girl or a guy or even a human. I don't know what's up with Ro. All I know is that they die a lot, and they have some powerful spells. Once in a while, they pull through. Then Ro took through class change, and the image changed, and I was like, wow, Ro went full on evil. And that's when it started to come through, like, oh wow, yeah, no, Ro's really tapping into that dark magic. And there's just been, like, some heroic moments where, like, Ro developed into this character in my head as like the sort of like quiet in the back, dark, schemy kind of. They're evil, but you know, they're friends with us and they do fight for the right thing, so it's kind of okay kind of character who really does want to stay out of the fights because they can't take a hit very well. But there's been some shining moments where Ro, armed only with a knife and out of spells, runs in to deliver the killing blow to the troll or to the skeleton or whatever it is. They always run in there and kind of give their final blow. Like I feel like they get really mad when they run out of magic and they're like delegated to like, oh no, Ro, you ran out of magic, you gotta sit this one out. They get mad and they pull out their dagger and they run in to go and deliver that final blow and show everyone, ha, I can fight just like you. And yeah, that's kind of that's kind of how I envisioned Ro. And Ro's always like really stepped up, and I mean, final battle stuff, that magic really pulled through. Then we come down to Lar. Lar is pretty awesome. Like, Lar is just kind of awesome. Like, from the very beginning, Lar was like in the same kind of boat as Ro. Like, oh, well, I can't really fight. All I can really do is kind of sit back and use a couple of healing spells, and then if I'm out of magic, there's not much I can do. I mean, almost worse so than Ro. I saw Lar as like, Lar, you know, started off really weak, like really like, there's nothing I can do. I can't, I'm just sitting here, I'm hitting them with a stick, I'm doing very minimal damage, there's nothing I can really do right now. I'm very incapable. But then as the story progressed, Lar got more and more powerful. Eventually started learning more magic. Eventually got some better weapons. And eventually Lar was like a team player, like, you know, every so often pulling through, delivering a final blow, making sure everyone stays healthy. And like finally had that moment of like, yeah, I'm an integral part of this party. I am doing my part and I'm helping us succeed. And then we eventually found some magic items and stuff, and Lar got very powerful. Lar was like pulling out really good heals and damage and like doing a really nice job being part of this active. Never always super hard on killing things until we came across undead. Lar really, really hates undead. like to the point where, like, I'm pretty sure almost every undead encounter, minus wraiths, because wraiths are, well, we'll get to that at a later topic, but most of our undead counters, Lar just gets in there and destroys them with magic or just a weapon or whatever it is. Something about undead, Lar cannot stand them. Lars hates the undead. Funny enough, going through and, like, taking care of all that undead made Lar very strong. And by the end of the game, Lar was, like, hitting, like, massive damage on point with, like, almost on point with Ro, and was healing, like, every single turn and was bringing people back to life. And, like, Lar was, like, super, super confident. Like, went from, like, a nothing to a champion. Which brings us to the final character, Frey. Now, right off the bat, it wasn't the best idea to have a character called Fe and a character called Frey. I mixed those two up a bunch, I mispronounced stuff, I got confused by stuff, it was not a great idea. So Frey is a thief, and I don't know about later renditions of Final Fantasy games yet, or remakes of this, but the thief is kind of useless in this game. I did not know this making the party. I just assumed, like, I'm just gonna make a generic balanced party. You know, fighter, healer, mage, and a thief. Because there's always thieves and stuff. The thief class is very underpowered in this game, and their only skill, running away, is actually not great, and I'll go into that later. So yeah, Fred was essentially the punching bag of the party. I really did not like Fred, so that kind of came out with the other characters, as like a lot of us kind of had this like distaste for him. Like he kind of like, we looked at him and were like, you know, if you were just like another fighter, or you know, like a red mage or something, you'd be doing much more for us right now. And I know it's not nice, but that's kind of just how I felt. And we went through, we were doing our adventures, and gosh, Fred would always die. Like, he's supposed to be like a fighter, and he's like as squishy as a mage. He'd always go down, he'd always die, he'd always have trouble and stuff. And you know, eventually he got a bit better, he can hold his own, he never did as much damage as Fred, and he was never as tanky, and he didn't have any magic. You know, he's always there, and he was always chipping in wherever he can. And then there came this time when I was in a dungeon, and everyone in the party was dead except for Fred. Now, I'm at the bottom of this dungeon. I can't revive the party. The only way I can guarantee the safety of this game, the safety of the magical item I retrieved, is to get to the surface of this dungeon and save the game. Somehow, Fred was able to do it. That was his absolute crowning, shining moment, was pulling through, getting out, getting to the top of the dungeon. And he pulled through eventually a couple other times. He started really pulling through, and like, I was like, wow, like Fred's all of a sudden starting to step up. And he was essentially going through like a phase of character development like Lar, similar to Lar, except like he was still like always underpowered. Like he always had this moment of like, I'm always going to be underpowered, but I'm going to keep fighting and I'm going to keep going for this. And eventually he never got many moments to shine, but when those moments came through and he did shine and he did succeed, they were absolutely amazing. And it showed like, man, despite all the hardship we put him through, he still pushes through and comes out and pulls through, because he really, you know, he's a cool guy. I like Fred now. I went from hating him to really liking Fred. And that's what I mean by the fact that these characters are all from the mechanics. The game didn't make these characters. You could put 10 people to run through this game with the same exact party, and they'll all have different ideas about the characters. Some might overlap here and there, but for the most part, like, your experiences in the game are what's going to build these characters. But then again, that might just be me having an overactive imagination and overthinking the game and then imposing this on the characters myself. So take that with what you will. In my opinion, the gameplay is great because the gameplay is what builds the characters. Speaking of which, the gameplay. So, what is Final Fantasy? It's an RPG in its purest form. You have a party, they have attacks, spells, HP. You're walking through the world, a random encounter is going to happen, and you're going to start some good old-fashioned turn-based combat. I love it. I love it. Turn-based strategies are probably my favorite type of game. Yeah, it's up for debate because I do like racing games a lot, but honestly, I think like turn-based strategies is kind of where I shine the most as a gamer. Like, that's kind of where I can show off my skills. I like strategy games, but I like them even more when I can sit down and think about my decisions. And that's one of the ways I had a lot of fun with this game, is you don't see health bars. You see damage results. So you have to, like, you really think about what you're doing and pay attention to the battle before you start throwing out spells willy-nilly and, just start attacking haphazardly and not healing. You gotta pay attention to what's going on. You gotta plan, you gotta have strategies. The only reason I was able to beat all the bosses in this game is because before I went and took on the boss, I sat down and I made a strategy. I planned out. I was like, here's plan B, here's plan A, here's plan A, here's plan B, this is my strategy, this is what I'm gonna do, I need these items. Okay, pep talk, let's do this. And I just love the type of game where you, like, sit down, like, not even playing the game, like, sit down real world and really think about what you're gonna do for this boss battle, and then you jump in. And you got limited resources. You can carry 99 healing potions. You think that that's like, oh, it's broken, or oh, you just keep healing. No, you'll go through those potions fast. Like, towards the end of the game, you're using like 100 potions a dungeon. You really are. This game does not pull punches. One of the downsides of the game is you do need to grind. There's no getting around it. You have to grind. Like, if you are not level 30 by the final dungeon, you can't beat it without immense luck. Or cheesing it. Because there are speed runs where there's special things where it's like, if you have a party of, 3 fighters and then 1 red mage and you do this, and stuff. But really, for the most part, you need to be level 30 when you hit that final dungeon. And there's no optional quests. There's really not. There's one that's kind of masqueraded as an optional quest, where you kind of get a class advancement, but really that's not optional. You gotta do that. You need those stats. So, I mean, I'm saying you gotta grind. It's a downside of gameplay. The grinding, I did not mind very much. Early grinding's hard, but once you get later on the game, you can find some items that make grinding really easy, and there's some pretty good spots for it as well. So, you just boot up the game, you put on some Netflix, you turn the sound off on the console, and you just kind of zone out, killing some monsters for a while, getting some gold, watching your numbers rack up. Helps you get a good feel for combat flow as well. Like, you get into, like, a go-to is, like, turn 1, we do this, 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 this. Turn 2, we do this, 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 this. Turn 3, this, 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 unless they do that, and then we do this, this, this. And you start planning out, like, a thing. So, not only are you grinding for levels, but you are actually getting, like, some experience for the game, which allows you to better your skills and, have a better idea of, like, how you're gonna best these bosses in combat. Because you're not gonna beat the boss with overwhelming numbers. You do need to kind of plan out your strategy. You could, but it requires way too much grinding. And this game is fairly long. And if I could just take a moment to say, I'm amazed at how much content they were able to put on an NES game. This is a long game with a lot of different, like, dungeons and, like, it's not like the same dungeon over and over again. It's a very, very different dungeon every single time. I don't want to give some spoilers, but there's some big dungeons that really throw you for a loop in there, and you're like, wow, I was not expecting this out of an NES game. Which, I mean, really does help for the game itself, is that there's these moments where it gives you sort of like a false expectation, and then hits you something out of left field, and is like, surprise, this is actually in the game. This is a thing. And one of those things made me absolutely lose my mind. There is an entire episode of this series where I'm just, like, absolutely losing my mind over this thing that happened in it. And, I mean, that's just brilliant. Any game that can make you do that is just a brilliant, brilliant game. But yeah, the gameplay, should and kind of does get a little bit repetitive. I didn't find it very repetitive, but I'm sure there's people out there who are going to find it very, very repetitive and get very, very bored by it. I grew up playing Pokemon, so, I mean, wasn't very repetitive to me. I always found that there was something different going on through the fights and through the areas. The one downside of the gameplay is the fact that you have to grind. But, I mean, it's not the worst, because every time you complete a battle, you get the absolute amazing victory tune. Which, speaking of, music. Oh boy, there's not too much to say on the music, because I'm not a musician, so I can't go into the details of this, but let me just say, the music's fantastic for the game. Like, the music fits the game so well. It feels so iconic and so perfect for the game, but you would not listen to this music outside of it. You wouldn't, like, put it on an MP3 player and just casually listen to this music as you go about things. It's not that type of music. This music is solely for enhancing your game experience. It's made in specific ways to give you specific emotions during times in the gameplay, and not for listening outside of it. Like, they really did go all out with the music in the regards that they really wanted it to cater to this game, and it really does feel like a part of it. I mean, many times, and mostly modern games, you come across it, and the music's nice. It's a very pleasant orchestral piece, and you can download the soundtrack now for only $10, and you can listen as you go to work. That's a game that has good music with it. This is a game that has good music for it. The music's not working with it. The music's working solely for this game, if that makes sense. Like, you know, you go around, you'll sing the Super Mario Bros. Theme or something like that. You're not really going to be singing any tunes from this game, except for one. The victory theme is absolutely genius, and is probably like the best little chime of music in a video game I have ever heard. And I'm not joking, like, not like a full song, because that's very debatable, like what the best video game song ever made is. I'm sure most people are going to say the Mario theme. But like as a chime, as a little chime, just the da 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 da, that is so amazing. It's honestly the best chime in a game ever. I mean, it's probably close to like some Zelda stuff. Zelda stuff probably comes like close second. Like Final Fantasy, the Final Fantasy victory theme is at number one. It never got old. It never got old playing this. And I played this game for like, who knows how long. I think I played this game for like 80 or 50 hours, honestly. And it never got old. Like some of the other songs started to get a bit old, and I would start like kind of singing along silly tunes to them. Never the victory theme. The victory theme was always just like the, yes, I did it. You just took a moment, listened to it, and then relish in your victory. Oh, even you just listen to it now, and it instills you with like, yes, I did it. I leveled up. I killed the monster. And I mean, the music. That's I don't want to go too much into the music because I'm not a musician, but the music is amazing in this game, but only for the game. You're not gonna listen to this on the way to work. Maybe you will. Maybe that's your taste. I'm not judging. You do you. The music, I'd say, is absolutely perfect, and the greatest thing is it all works. Unlike some other things. Bugs. Alright. It's time to address the elephant in the room. This game is super broken. Remember what I said earlier? When I said I absolutely love this game? I don't know if other people should play it. This is one of the reasons. There's a lot of spells in this game that just straight up don't work. There's spells that are supposed to increase your chance to hit or lower it, help you run from battle. Lots of interesting stuff like that that just don't work in the programming. Or sometimes even do the opposite. Like, there's an evasion spell that raises the enemy's invasion. Like, you cast this spell to make it easier to hit them, but in the end, it makes them easier to miss. And there's a lot of magic weapons that don't work. There's a lot of stuff mechanic-wise that just does not work. There's a lot of bugs in this game, and a lot of it has to do with spells. There's a lot of stuff with spells that aren't working. A lot of it has to do with the fact that the intelligence stat is absolutely broken. So, you know, critical hit chance and the damage is all varied and, like, mismatched. And there's just a lot of bad stuff. Critical hits are completely backwards. A lot of magic items don't work, but it's fine because, you know, the important ones work. So I guess that's all that matters. And the biggest thing, probably at least from my playthrough, was that there is a glitch with running away. So during combat, instead of fighting monsters, you can designate one or more characters to run away. Now, the thief has a special ability that's supposed to make him really, really good at running away from battles. Like, that's supposed to be his thing to help you in the game, is he helps you run away from battles. But since the running is glitched, pretty much any decently leveled character who has a high enough luck will be able to run away perfectly, just like the thief. So, the thief can run away really well at early levels, but then later on, everyone can run away just as good as the thief, and he kind of loses his one thing he was kind of good at. So, it's not ideal, that's for sure, but none of these glitches make the game broken, I want to say. Now, I know people are going to debate me on that because they're going to be like, no, but the whole magic system is broken and stuff. Obviously, like, it doesn't work. It's not ideal, but the game can be played. I played through the whole game, and honestly, a lot of the spells that don't work are very unimportant. I mean, you really are just going to only be using the damaging ones for the most part. You're not going to be in many situations where you're going to want one that raises your evasion or something. The buff spells work, so that's good. I mean, that's all you really need. It's not great that some of the magical items don't work as well, but honestly, the ones that are very important, in my opinion, do work well, so that's fine. So yeah, there's a lot of bugs in this game. I don't think the game's broken. The game is very playable, but it's important to be aware of these bugs. So right off the bat, before I even get to the conclusion of this video where I'm like, should you play it? Should you not play it? If you're going to play it, be sure to look up what the bugs are, so you can avoid them. With the bugs being said, the bugs aren't great. I'm not a big fan of them, but they still brought us an amazing game. Speaking of a couple of other things I don't like. Dislike. Just a couple things I did not like. One, there's no higher level potions than the first potion you get. You get a potion from the beginning that heals you for like 30 HP, and that's the only potion you can buy for HP revival. That's it. That's all you can get. That's not great. I really wish they would have like done like a, oh no, your items cap out at 50 and not 99. But on the flip side, you can also go buy the second level potion that costs a lot more money, but heals you for more HP. Because I was drowning in gold by the end of the game. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that there was a few spells that I didn't buy because they were broken. I wish there was more that you could spend your gold on, potion-wise. Also, on the topic of potion, buying them is not great. You can buy a stack of 99. It takes forever because you have to buy them one by one. And it's not just like a press A to buy. Press it, select this potion. Yes, great. Add it to your inventory. Takes you back to the menu. Buy potion. Yes, great. In your inventory, back to the menu. So you're just sitting there mashing A. At least I hope you're buying it something that's at the top of the menu, because if not, you're mashing A and down. And you're just sitting there forever whenever I had to go shopping for potions, which became like a recurring thing in the game, I'd just be like, hey, I've shopped for potions. I just like zone out, just spam clicking through this to maximize my potions. I'm also not a fan, and this has to do with NES games, not specifically Final Fantasy, but a lot of NES games at the time. Can we please have more guidance on what we need to do? I cannot tell you how many times I just roamed around the world lost because I had no heading or no idea of what I was supposed to do next. It's just like, great, you got the magic MacGuffin. And then I'm sitting there like, what do I do with it? And the game's just like, I don't know, just go figure it out. And you're running all over the place and all over trying to get little tidbits of dialogue, and guidance would have helped tremendously. Especially a tutorial, because I spent 4 episodes or more without knowing that you had to equip your weapons. I went and bought all the items for each character, and I thought they equipped them automatically. Nope, you have to go into your inventory and specifically equip and unequip gear. Which is awesome gameplay standard-wise, but also I did not know to do that. Of course, all of this is clearly stated in the booklet. Like most NES games and old games at the time, all the rules and all the guidance and your quest logs and everything, and very, very important information is in the booklet that comes with the game. Which wasn't a problem the day this game came out, and little Timmy went down to the store to buy his Final Fantasy brand new, but it was bad for me, who had to buy the game used, and it did not come with a box or a booklet. So I had to eventually, because I was so lost and I had no idea where to go, and I refused to look up a guide online, because I feel like that would be cheating, so I went and I bought the booklet, and I had the booklet shipped over, and I flipped through it, and I'm like, wow, this is all very important information I wish I had at the time. And the booklet is required, which I don't like. Something else I dislike immensely, though, is this one enemy type. The hyena. I don't know why, but every time a random encounter of a hyena happened, I legit feel disgust and slight fear. I don't know what it is, like some past childhood trauma or something, but I absolutely hate the hyenas. They are the worst, and even just talking about them right now is just like giving me the heebie-jeebies right now. I cannot stand the hyenas. Oh, I dislike the hyenas so much. I really dislike the hyenas. Yeah. I wish that you could just play the game by itself, but like, if you're not gonna have a guide on the internet, you desperately need the booklet, and it's so important that, like, if you Google it, it's the first thing. Nintendo provides you with a PDF to Final Fantasy, because it's so important to have this booklet. Because not only does it explain the mechanics, give you stats of weapons and enemies, and all this really important information you need, it holds your hand. It helps you find the quests you need up until the point in the game where you'll have no trouble finding quests. Like, it helps guide you through the really hard quests that it has no heading until you get into the point of the game where every quest from that point on has a heading, and then the book just ends there. And it's like, oh, the people that wrote this knew that the game was going to be really, really, really hard up until this point, and then from this point on, you're okay on your own. And I just wish they could have implemented that into the game somehow. Of course, I mean, that's all the stuff I dislike about it. Going on to the stuff that I do... likes. There's so much I like about this game. And I'll say it again. Despite all those flaws and everything I just talked about, I love this game. For starters, I love how much content there is. I love that you can customize and name your party. Oh my gosh, that is so cool. I love the equipping of gear, and like every party member has their own inventory of gear that they have to kind of manage and that they can use in combat. I mean, the combat system Well, I love it. It's a great combat system. I can't wait to play more games with it. And there's so much that I love. I love that you go from walking to a boat to an airship. That is great. I love the different evolution of how you traverse the world. That's just a great touch to the game. I mean, there's so much to like. I like the different towns. I like how it doesn't like force too much story down you. It lets it develop normally. There's so much that I really like about this game. And it really outweighs the other bad stuff tremendously, which makes me want to recommend it to other people. Which brings me to, should you play it? Should you play the original Final Fantasy? And I'm gonna put a big old maybe. I really did love this game. I love this game so much. I'm probably gonna go back and replay this game at some point. And I want to like look into maybe speed running this game. This game has not only just like been a really fun time to have, but like the experience I've had with it, because I played this game for a very long time. It's like a chapter of my life now. It's just tremendous, and I would not trade it. And it's those feelings that make me want to go out there and recommend this game to everyone. But I also have to take a step back and realize, not everyone's going to be super down for playing an NES RPG that requires a minimum of 12 hours. So that's why I want to say, if this looks interesting to you at all, and you are a sucker for like old stuff, or you're hardcore when it comes to completing games, you're a huge RPG fan, or just maybe a major Final Fantasy fan in general, if you're any of those kinds of things, give this game a go. Maybe don't play it on an NES though. There are remakes of this game. I don't know how well they are, and it's going to be a while before I can get to and play those ones. I would recommend maybe you should take a look at those, but if you're kind of like a go-to for starting from the beginning and doing old things, and you really want to play a true RPG classic, like the RPG, you got to play the NES version. And, you know, maybe you'll find a way to play it on your PC, which, I mean, would be great if you could, because, you know, then you wouldn't have to run out and buy an old NES and have to fiddle with it and stuff. Just for the record, I played this game on an NES, but, you know, maybe if you can't do that, you'll find a way to play it on your PC. Which would be great, because then you could just have one window, the Final Fantasy. Whenever you have to do grinding, you could just watch videos on the other or something, and I think that would be a good way to experience the game. Whenever the game's interesting, you can close all your stuff down, open it up, pay attention to it, then when it's back to grinding, put it aside. Go back to, you know, multitasking. So, if any of this game has looked interesting to you, and you feel like you can commit to it, give it a go. Because this game really did feel like the original RPG. And I know people are going to debate me on that. Okay, I'm just going to put up the flags right now. I know Final Fantasy isn't the world's first RPG, but it feels like it. This truly feels like the game that started something tremendous. And it feels like you're playing a huge part of history. So, any interest in it all? Give it a go. Do a bit of research first. Make sure you have, like, you know what you're doing. You have a good party. If you need to, the booklet's on the internet. Maybe look up a guide. And, you know, if you don't feel like you can have the time committed to it, go around and watch some videos on it. Because this is a very cool game with a lot of history. And honestly, this game has made me very happy, and I really love it, and I would love nothing more than to share it with people who have probably never touched Final Fantasy before. And, well, those are my thoughts on Final Fantasy, the first one for NES. Well, if you're interested in other things I have to talk about and you somehow find my weird voice interesting, I have some videos on this channel. You could just go down below and, I don't know, maybe subscribe? I don't like telling people to subscribe, it's weird, but you can go. I have other videos. You can watch my playthrough of Final Fantasy, you know, if you don't want to play through the game. It's a long playthrough, but hopefully my witty banter will keep it interesting enough. And don't worry, I fast forward through some very boring bits of grinding, so you don't have to sit through all of that. Till the next time when I give my thoughts on Final Fantasy II, the Japanese version. Bye.